All right, any other questions? All right, yeah, when it comes to integration, I can tell you in general what NetBrain can do, but a lot of it depends on how it and the other system are told to communicate with each other and how to interact with each other. There's tend to be a lot of different things you can do, and how your specific integration will work depends on what it's been programmed to do. So if anyone wants the chapter and verse as to what NetBrain can do in that regard, I can point you to it later. All right, so there's that. Now, we're just going to go through, because I don't want to keep you guys too long, but let's go through some basics as to what we might want to do in terms of gathering information. So let's start by opening up runbook pane. Now, when I open a map, it literally creates a runbook with my name on it. And I see a bunch of you folks have accessed this map because it's created a runbook for each one of you. I could access your runbooks, you could access mine. Now, if you were to come in and do something in my runbook, that's fine, but I'm not going to see it until I manually refresh my view of the runbook. So in general, it's best if each of us works in our own runbook, and then as we'll see, we publish our results into the incident. So let's go ahead and start with a very simple thing. Before we get into execute CLI, a good place to start, if you're not sure specifically where to start, is with the overall health view. This is a data view template. It's one of the 150 odd that are built in. This particular data view template is so popular, we gave it its own type of step. And what it's going to do, I'm going to tell it to run once, it's going to look at the devices and on the map, and it's going to pull live, in this case, it's going to pull CPU memory and bandwidth utilization information, I think via SNMP. And then it's going to make a heat map to let us know where there's issues. I can zoom in here so we can see what's going on. I'm not even sure. It looks like there's a minor delta error here. There's 2 delta errors, so that's enough to make it go yellow. But yeah, if it was more severe, it would look red. And so this is a great place to check for slowness specifically, but also just in general, if you're not sure where to start looking, you could do a lot worse than running this on the map and seeing what turns orange or red. At least 50% of the time, issues will manifest with one or more of these symptoms that this data view template is looking for, okay? Now, speaking of data view templates, we can go over to our data view pane here and refresh, and we can see what data view templates NetBrain thinks might work for this particular map. And so if I want to do, say, I don't know, CRC error check or something, I can click on this, choose whether to run it against cache data or live data, apply it, and what it actually does is it adds a data view type step to the runbook and runs it, and then it's going to overlay the results, if any. So here we see the data that it's pulled, and it's showing it as a data view on the map. Now, if I then click back to my results from the overall health data view, you see this data view is swapped in. So one other thing we may be noticing is we want as much real estate on the screen as possible when using NetBrain. So in a perfect world, you'll want an ultra-wide monitor, believe it or not, but that's not usually possible. So basically just collapse things as needed. So for example, I can collapse the incident pane like so if I need to do that. Now, if I flip back open the results pane here, let's say that the overall health view tells me something important. So I can share this into the incident and say, I don't know, conclusion. I don't know. Sorry, it looks like we're getting another lag spike here. Here we go. Let's share that. And now everybody in here can see my conclusion that I wrote. We can put a flag on it, pin it, whatever. And then any of you guys who are in here can come click on this link, and you'll be taken to my runbook, to my results, my data view, and you can see exactly what I'm seeing. So you don't need to duplicate my work. How cool is that, in short? Do runbook commands run all the devices on the map? It depends. So if we're going to this, we see the overall health view, I think, is hardwired to look at the entire map. But with this data view, if I click on the here, yeah, now that it's been run, it's hardwired in. But let's go ahead and tell it to run a QApp, for example. I'm just going to grab something random here. Now, I don't think this would work if I ran it, but prior to execution, I can click how many devices here, and I can choose which devices are included or excluded from the map, or even add in stuff that isn't on the map. But it does default to everything on the map, yes. Now let's go with execute CLI commands. Now a very good best practice is to name your runbook steps. So if you're running adaptive automation, it'll name it after that. But otherwise, and even that you can change. But let's call this, I don't know, site check or something. And did you have a question, Brian? Thought I heard you on mute for a second. Anyway, so let's go with show version and show interface. Let's keep it very simple here. I can have as many commands as I want, and of course be very specific with specific devices, but I'm just running these two against everything. And we'll see what we get. Here we go. And we're seeing different things on different devices, and I can search through them and so forth. And depending on what I'm looking at, I might have a history of this particular show command on this particular device or interface. And I can click and see what has changed over time. I can also click compare here and check any 2 points in time and see what has changed. And it will tell me line by line exactly what the delta is between these 2 points in time. And in this case, I can see that, yeah, I don't have any actual changes, just uptime stats and things like that. So there we go. So nothing we can't do for ourselves, but can NetBrain identify mentioned in the incident? If we're talking about the show command here, Nielsen, you're going to have to make sure to send the right syntax to the right types of devices. In terms of adaptive automation, ask me after class. There's a much more long-winded answer as to how that works. Yeah. All right, let's see. Let's run a trace route, for example. Let's say, because of the slowness, remember, our supposed use case here is that there's slowness between here and the data center. So let's say I want to run a trace route. So I'm going to trace from BR02 to the data center. And so let's go from BR02 core, switch 1 to 10, 10, 10, 1. Trace, now this is going to do what's called a proxy trace, which you can do yourself. It's logging into this device and then issuing the trace route from there. I can do this for most operating systems that support it. And you can do this by hand as well, of course. And so here's our results. Let's map it. And so it actually puts a line object on the map as well as adding devices that are new. And we can see this is where the trace route is going. It's going out through the router over a DMVPN, which I happen to know is our backup link to the data center edge router 1 to the data center core. Now, this shouldn't be going over the DMVPN. This should be going over an MPLS link. What's going on? So let's share this here and say, Trace says it's going over the DMVPN. Now, if I want to get a more detailed analysis of exactly what's going to happen right now, or what would have happened to a packet sent from point A to point B at a previous point in time, NetBrain has a simulation tool for traffic called the A to B path calculator tool. And when I say a simulation tool for traffic, it's very specific. So let's say path from BR02 to the data center. Let's run the exact same path, but with the path calculator. So let's say BR02 core, switch 1 to DC core switch 1. And I'm going to run a one-way trace. And if I go into the gear icon here, I'm going to be simulating just basic IP traffic, although I could use any one of 150 other protocols, including port numbers if they're required. And I'm going to say trace by the last time we got a full snapshot of the network, what would have happened then, which was midnight last night. So let's go ahead and path this. And what it's going to do, it's going to start at the identified gateway device. It's going to either log into that device live, or in this case, look at its cache data, and it's going to look for a lot of different types of data. So if I select this and then look at the details here, in this case, it only found a routing table. So it matched against the routing table, and that's how it determined the next hop. But if we look, it's looking at VRFs, QoS, access control lists, policy-based routes, NAT, anything that might affect the next hop of the packet, depending on how the device is configured. And of course, we have different algorithms for different types of devices because they think differently. And so then it's going to determine, okay, here's the next hop. It's going to go to the next hop device, talk to that device, and so on until it determines the packet will be dropped or until it runs outside the area of discovered network or until it reaches its destination. So what we wind up with is we've got our trace route going over the DMVPN and tracing from what the data gather we snapshotted last night with the path calculator. Last night, at least, it went through the MPLS like it was supposed to. So, someone, please, at somebody, please contact our ISP and get the MPLS back up ASAP. Okay, so what from the incident view, you cannot click your shared trace health results. When you click this, it should take you to my runbook in the map, to my results here, and you should see this text output from the device. Is that not the case?
Okay, no, it's not the case, but maybe because when I logged in, I had to use the NetBrain University login instead of a tech.
Right, but that still should work.
No, so, it's just, for me, it's just a text field. It highlights, maybe the Edge. I'm in Edge. That could be the problem, right? One of those bugs you talked about, or glitches. Does it work for anybody else?
Possibly, yeah. I would suggest, Tom, if you happen to have Chrome or Firefox on your machine.
I'll try from Chrome.
Yeah, just see what happens.
All right.
Because yeah, if it does work for you in Chrome, that's our answer. If it's still not working for you, that's very interesting, and we'll see what we can figure out after class. All right. So Maurice is saying it's working for him in Chrome, so that might be another browser-based thing. So it's hard to predict how it'll manifest. So there's other types of steps for running intents or intent clusters, things like that. When you run, if you select a cluster of network intents, let me select a intent here, and then if I say not just a common saved intent, but a cluster of intents, if I select an entire cluster, it will actually say, okay, which members of the cluster are relevant to devices on the current map? Because this might have 1,000 intents in it, depending on the size of my network. But in this case, I'd probably only want to run the 2 that are actually that are duplicating this intent to devices on my actual map. Come on, honey, you can do it. Okay, and then when I run this, it'll show me red flag, green flag, what's going on, or at least it's supposed to. Yep. Okay, so on one device we have 2 instances of encryption issues or errors. And on